It's just for a trial stay, Mum. It's for the best. My son, Mark, patted my shoulder. He avoided my eyes. The air in the hallway smelled of bleach and something vaguely like boiled potatoes. A woman with a walker shuffled past, her slippers scraping the polished linoleum floor. The sound echoed. Mark set my small suitcase down by a narrow bed. The room was painted a pale, tired yellow. A single window looked out onto a brick wall. The air conditioner hummed loudly, a constant rattling breath. "I'll come by tomorrow, after my big meeting," he said. "Get you settled in?" I just nodded. I smoothed the skirt of my dress over my knees. It was my good navy blue one, the one I wore to church. I felt the smooth fabric under my fingertips. I wanted to hold on to something familiar. "You'll make new friends, Mom. You'll see." He leaned in and gave me a quick, dry kiss on the cheek. Then he was gone. The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed was heavier than the air conditioner's hum. Just last Sunday, my house was full of noise. My granddaughter, Lily, was showing me a video on her phone. The sound of cartoon cats screeched from the little speaker. Mark and his wife, Susan, were in the living room, watching football on my television. The announcer's voice was a loud drone in the background. I was in the kitchen, pulling my roast chicken out of the oven. The wave of hot air smelled of rosemary and garlic. I had mashed the potatoes just how Mark liked them, with extra butter and a little cream cheese. The gravy was simmering on the stove, thick and brown. "Dinner's ready," I called out. Susan came into the kitchen, smiling. "Carol, you are a lifesaver. I don't know how we'd manage Sunday dinners without you." She picked a piece of crispy skin off the chicken and popped it in her mouth. Perfect, as always. I remember thinking how tired I was. My back ached from standing. But seeing them all at my table, eating the food I made, it felt important. It felt like my job. That night, in the narrow bed, I couldn't sleep. The mattress was thin, and I could feel the springs through the sheets. The blanket was coarse and smelled faintly of that same bleach from the hallway. Through the thin walls, I could hear a man coughing, a deep, wet sound that went on and on. I thought about Mark's words. It's for the best. Best for who? For him and Susan, who wanted to sell my house. They told me so last month. "It's too much for you to keep up, Mom," Susan had said, her voice full of fake concern. I reached for my purse on the little nightstand. I pulled out my phone. The screen was a bright little rectangle in the darkness. I put on my reading glasses. My fingers weren't shaking. They felt steady. I opened my banking app. I had been saving for years, ever since my husband, Frank, passed. Every social security check, every bit from the sale of his old tools. It was all there, a nice, solid number. I knew the account number for my private investment fund by heart. I typed it in. It was a simple transfer, just a few taps on the glowing screen. A message popped up. Transfer complete. I closed the app, turned off the phone, and placed it back on the nightstand. For the first time all day, I breathed out, long and slow. The next morning, I was dressed and waiting by the reception desk at 7 o'clock. My small suitcase stood beside me. A nurse with tired eyes looked up from her computer. "Good morning, dear. Breakfast is in the dining hall." "I won't be staying for breakfast," I said. My voice sounded clear and strong in the quiet lobby. "I'm checking out." She blinked. "Checking out? But your son, Mr. Henderson, he arranged for a week." "My plans have changed," I told her. I gave her a small, polite smile. I felt her watching me as I walked through the automatic glass doors. The morning air was cool and fresh. It smelled like damp earth from the flower beds. A clean black car was waiting at the curb. I had called for it myself, from my phone, just before dawn. The driver held the door for me. The inside of the car smelled like leather. The seat was soft. He closed the door, and the sounds of the nursing home, the distant coughing, the hum of the building, were sealed away. The car pulled up to a beautiful building made of warm stone and glass. It was called the Willows at Silver Creek. A man in a neat uniform opened my door. The lobby was filled with sunlight. I could smell coffee and something sweet, like cinnamon rolls. In the corner, someone was playing a piano, a soft, cheerful tune. A woman with a kind smile and a stylish grey haircut came to greet me. Her name was Eleanor. "Welcome to the Willows," she said. "You must be Carol." "I am," I said. "You mentioned you had a penthouse apartment available, with the balcony that faces the gardens." "We do," she said, her eyes bright. "It's a lovely spot. Shall we go see it?" We saw it. It was perfect. An hour later, I sat in her quiet office, the scent of fresh flowers from a vase on her desk filling the air. I signed the papers and wrote the check. My hand did not tremble. Then, I took out my phone. I sent a single text message to my son, Mark. It said, "For any future mail, my new forwarding address is 1 Silver Creek Drive, apartment 801. I did not add anything else. I put the phone back in my purse, looked out the window at the green gardens below, and felt the sun on my face. My new apartment was empty, but it was mine. I walked from room to room, my sensible shoes sinking into the thick, cream-coloured carpet. Sunlight poured through the huge glass doors that led to the balcony. The air smelled of fresh paint and possibility. I slid the door open. The sounds of the city were a soft hum far below. I could see the park, green and lush, and the sparkle of a river in the distance. I stood there for a long time, just breathing. I thought of the pale yellow room with its view of a brick wall. I thought of the smell of bleach. Here, the air smelled like cut grass from the gardens below. A few of my things were arriving tomorrow from my house. The rest could be sold. They were just things. My phone buzzed in my purse. I already knew who it was. I let it buzz 3 more times before I answered. "Mum? What is going on? I just got a text with an address." Mark's voice was loud and tight. "Hello, Mark," I said calmly. I sat down on the floor, my back against the clean wall. The sun felt warm on my legs. "Where are you?" "I went back to that place this morning and they said you checked out. They said you left in a car." "Yes," I said. I did. There was a silence on the phone. I could hear him breathing hard. I imagined him pacing in his office, his hand running through his hair the way he does when he's angry. "What do you mean? You just left?" "Mum, we had an agreement. A trial stay. For your own good." "I decided it wasn't for me," I said. I looked around my beautiful, empty living room. "So I found something else." "Something else? What is this address? Some fancy condo? How did you pay for that?" The question was sharp, like a little stone he threw at me over the phone. "With my money, Mark," I said. "It seems this was for the best, after all, just like you said." "You can't do this," he shouted. "That was the money for your care, for the house. Susan and I were counting on that." I didn't say anything. He had said the quiet part out loud. I heard Susan's voice in the background, a faint, worried murmur. "I have to go now, Mark. I'm waiting for a delivery." I ended the call. I didn't feel angry. I just felt quiet. The next day, I explored. I took the elevator down to the main floor. The piano was playing again, something by Chopin. I walked past a library with big, comfortable-looking armchairs. I saw the swimming pool through a wall of glass. It was a bright, clean blue. A few women were in the water, moving slowly, their laughter echoing off the tiles. I went into the dining hall. It looked like a lovely restaurant. Small tables were covered in white linen tablecloths. Each one had a small vase with a single, fresh rose. A woman with a bright pink sweater and a friendly smile was sitting by herself. She looked up as I hesitated in the doorway. "First day?" she asked. I nodded. "Is it that obvious?" "Only because you have that look," she said, chuckling. "Like you're not sure if you're allowed to sit down. I'm Judith. Please, join me." I sat down. Her coffee cup had a little chip on the rim. It made me smile. It was real. "I'm Carol," I said. "Welcome, Carol," she said, and her smile reached her eyes. "The salmon is very good on Tuesdays." I was in the library that afternoon, running my hand over the spines of the books, when the front desk called my room phone. It was Eleanor, the director. Her voice was calm and professional. "Carol, my apologies for bothering you. A Mr. and Mrs. Henderson are in the lobby. They say they are your son and daughter-in-law. They are quite insistent on seeing you." I felt a cold knot in my stomach, but my voice was steady when I answered. "I'm not expecting anyone, Eleanor." "I see," she said. There was a brief pause. "Would you like me to inform them that you are not available?" "Yes," I said. "That would be perfect. Thank you." I walked over to the library window, which overlooked the circular driveway. I saw them. Mark was red in the face, gesturing with his hands. Susan stood beside him, her arms crossed tightly, her face a mask of disapproval. The concierge, a tall, unflappable man, stood listening to them, his expression perfectly neutral. After a few minutes, Mark threw his hands up in the air, turned, and marched back to his car. Susan followed, casting one last angry look at the building. They drove away. I watched until their car was out of sight. That evening, I ate dinner with Judith in the dining hall. My small table was delivered, along with my favourite armchair and my box of photo albums. The rest of my things could wait. I had ordered the salmon. It was delicious. The sound of quiet conversation and the clink of silverware filled the room. It was a peaceful sound. "So, what made you decide on the willows?" Judith asked, dabbing her mouth with her napkin. "My son helped me realize it was time for a change," I said. She nodded, understanding that there was more to the story, but kind enough not to ask. "Well," she said, raising her glass of iced tea, "here's to changes." I touched my glass to hers. Through the large windows, I could see the sun setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone was in my purse, on silent. For the first time in a very long time, I wasn't waiting for it to ring. I was just living. I joined the water aerobics class on Wednesday. The indoor pool was warm, and the water felt soft against my skin. The instructor was a young woman with a cheerful voice that echoed in the big, steamy room. I moved my arms and legs through the water, feeling the gentle resistance. It was the first time I'd exercised just for fun in years. Afterward, I found a letter in my new mailbox. The envelope was thick and creamy, with the name of a law firm embossed in the corner. My heart didn't pound. It just felt steady. I took the elevator up to my apartment, the faint scent of chlorine still in my hair. I sat down in my favorite armchair, the one they delivered from my house. I ran my thumb over the worn, familiar fabric on the armrest. Then I opened the letter. It was full of long words and complicated sentences. But the meaning was simple. Mark was questioning my competence to manage my own affairs. Later, I had tea with Judith in the community lounge. I showed her the letter. She put on her reading glasses and scanned the page, her lips a thin, tight line. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said, placing the letter on the table between us. The oldest trick in the book. "He's angry I used my own money," I said simply. "He's angry you took away his inheritance," she corrected gently. "You need to see my lawyer, Carol. Her name is Margaret Davis. She eats boys like your son for breakfast." The next morning, I pulled out the old cedar box where Frank and I kept our important papers. The familiar smell of wood and thyme filled my small study. I found everything I needed. The deed to my house, still solely in my name. My old will, the one that left everything to Mark. My bank statements from the last 10 years. My social security records. I laid them all out on my new dining table. Each piece of paper was a part of my life, a life I had built and paid for. I remembered a time, maybe 5 years ago, when I asked Mark about investing some of my savings. "Don't you worry your head about these things, Mom," he'd said, patting my hand. "It's all very complicated. I'll handle it." He never did, of course. He just wanted to know where it was. I picked up my phone and dialed the number Judith had given me. A calm voice answered. "Law offices of Margaret Davis?" "Yes," I said, my own voice clear and strong. "I'd like to make an appointment with Ms. Davis. My name is Carol Henderson." Ms. Davis's office was on the 20th floor of a downtown building. It didn't smell like bleach or boiled potatoes. It smelled of leather books and faint, clean perfume. She was a woman about my daughter's age, if I'd had a daughter. She had sharp, intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense handshake. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just laid out the facts and showed her the letter. She listened without interrupting, her gaze never leaving my face. She read the letter from Mark's lawyer in about 30 seconds. "Standard intimidation tactics," she said, setting it aside as if it were a grocery list. "Designed to scare you." As if on cue, my phone, which I'd placed on her polished desk, began to buzz. The screen lit up with a picture of Mark and Lily, smiling at a birthday party. I looked at the phone, then back at Ms. Davis. "That's my son now," I told her. She gave me a small, knowing smile. "Let him go to voicemail." I explained how I'd spent my life making Sunday dinners, hosting holidays, and saving every penny I could. I told her I was just supposed to be a memory in a pale yellow room. "They thought I was just a Sunday dinner and a checkbook," I said. "I didn't die. I just stopped being convenient." The next attempt came 2 days later. I was on my balcony, watering a pot of bright pink geraniums I had just bought. The soil was cool and damp on my fingers. My phone rang. This time it was Susan. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Carol, dear. We've all been so worried sick. Mark is just beside himself. He only wants what's best for you." There it was again, that phrase. "It's for the best." I looked out over the gardens, watching 2 men play a slow game of chess on a stone table. "I am perfectly fine, Susan," I said. "But Lily misses you so much," she cooed. "She keeps asking when she can come over to your house to bake your special oatmeal cookies. The house smells so empty without you." The guilt was a clumsy tool. It didn't work on me anymore. "Lily is welcome to visit me here any time," I said, my voice pleasant. "We have a beautiful guest suite she can use, and a brand new oven for cookies." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. "Oh," she finally said. "Well, I'll have to check our schedule." She hung up soon after that. On Friday, I went back to Margaret Davis's office. She had prepared a new will for me, along with a durable power of attorney and a healthcare directive. The documents were crisp and clean, They named Margaret as my executor. They left a generous, but not excessive, amount to my granddaughter Lily to be held in a trust until she was 25. Mark couldn't touch a penny of it. The rest was to be split between the local animal shelter and a scholarship fund at the community college. I picked up the heavy black pen. The ink flowed smoothly onto the paper. I signed my name, Carol Henderson, on each dotted line. My signature was firm. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. On my way out, I felt light. I walked through the lobby of my building and saw a sign-up sheet on a little easel. Beginners pottery class. Tuesdays at 2 p.m.? I thought of the cool, damp feel of the soil on my hands from my geraniums. I smiled. I picked up the pen hanging by a little string and wrote my name in the next empty spot. A certified letter arrived from Margaret Davis's office. It was addressed to Mark. I didn't open it. I just put a new stamp on it and wrote his home address on the front in my neatest cursive. I dropped it in the outgoing mail slot in the lobby. The little metal door made a soft thud when I closed it. It was the sound of a chapter ending. My life started to take on a new rhythm. Mornings were for water aerobics or a walk in the gardens. The air was always fresh, and I learned the names of the gardeners, who always had a smile for me. Afternoons were for reading in the library or my new pottery class. The pottery room was in the basement. It smelled of damp clay and earth. Our instructor, a kind woman named Maria, showed us how to center the clay on the wheel. My first few attempts were wobbly, lopsided messes, but I liked the feel of the wet clay spinning under my hands. It was messy and real. Judith joined the class with me. Her first pot looked more like a flattened pancake. We laughed until our sides hurt. "Well," she said, wiping a smudge of clay off her nose, "at least we can't say our golden years are boring." One afternoon, I was sitting on a bench by the rose garden, reading a mystery novel. The pages felt smooth under my thumb. The sun was warm on my back. A man I recognized from the library sat down on the other end of the bench. He was tall and had a kind, crinkly smile. "That's a good one," he said, nodding at my book. "But the butler didn't do it." I laughed. "Well, you've just saved me 100 pages. I'm Carol." "Arthur," he said, and I was only joking. "The butler is my prime suspect." We talked for a while. He used to be a history professor. He had 2 grown daughters who lived out of state. He had a quiet way of speaking, and he was a good listener. It was nice. Just nice. It wasn't anything more than that, but it was the kind of pleasant surprise I was getting used to here. My phone rang late one night. It was an unknown number, and I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. "Grandma?" The voice was small and hesitant. It was Lily. "Lily, sweetheart, is everything all right?" My heart did a little flip. "I miss you," she whispered. I could hear the sound of a television in the background. "Mom and Dad are fighting again. About money. And about you." I closed my eyes. "I miss you too, darling. Very much. Dad said you lost your mind. He said you gave all your money away." Her voice trembled a little. "No, honey," I said, my voice soft but firm. "I didn't lose my mind. I found it. And I didn't give my money away. I'm using it to live." We talked for a few more minutes. I told her about the swimming pool and the pottery class. I told her about my balcony with all the flowers. I invited her to come for a weekend, just the 2 of us. Her voice sounded brighter by the time we hung up. The next day, there was a message waiting for me at the front desk. Mark had called. Not my cell phone, but the main switchboard. He had asked to speak to the director of nursing. The concierge, a lovely young woman named Sarah, had handled it. "He was asking about your condition," Sarah told me, her expression carefully neutral. I informed him that we are an active, living community, not a medical facility, and that all residents' information is confidential. "Thank you, Sarah," I said, my voice full of gratitude. "Of course, Mrs. Henderson," she said with a warm smile. He also asked if it was true you were going on dates. I told him the social calendar here is very full. I had to smile at that. Me, going on dates. I had shared a pleasant conversation on a park bench with Arthur. Mark's mind, it seemed, could only see one thing: his inheritance, walking around and talking to history professors. At pottery class that Tuesday, I finally made something that looked like a bowl. It was a little crooked, but it was mine. I held it in my hands, feeling the weight of it. Maria showed me how to trim the bottom and smooth the edges with a damp sponge. "That's a lovely shape, Carol," she said. "It's not perfect," I said. "It's not supposed to be," she replied, her eyes kind. "It's supposed to be yours." I looked down at the simple, earthy bowl. I thought about the pale yellow room. I thought about the sound of the door clicking shut. And then I thought about the sun on my balcony, and the smell of wet clay, and the sound of Judith's laughter. I placed the bowl on a shelf to dry, ready for the kiln. It was a start. Lily came to visit on a Saturday. I met her in the lobby. She looked so grown up, but she still had the same shy smile. She gave me a tight hug, burying her face in my shoulder. I could feel the thinness of her arms. "Wow, Grandma," she said, looking around at the high ceilings and the comfortable furniture. "This place is like a hotel." "It's home," I said, squeezing her hand. We went for a swim in the big, warm pool. We were the only ones there. The water amplified our voices, making our laughter echo. Afterward, we sat on my balcony in our bathrobes, eating ice cream straight from the carton. The sun was warm, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the gardens below. "Mum said you sold the house," Lily said quietly, scraping her spoon around the edge of the carton. "I am selling it, yes," I said. "It's too big for one person." She was quiet for a moment. "I'll miss my room, and baking cookies in your kitchen." "We can bake cookies in my new kitchen," I told her, pointing through the glass door. "It's a very good oven, and you can stay in the guest suite whenever you want. It will be your room here." Her face lit up. We baked oatmeal cookies that afternoon. My new kitchen was bright and clean, and the oven worked perfectly. The apartment filled with the warm, sweet smell of cinnamon and baked oats. It was a smell I had missed. As we were putting the cookies on a cooling rack, Lily looked at me with serious eyes. "Dad is really mad," she said. "He yells a lot. He says you betrayed the family." I stopped what I was doing and wiped my hands on a dish towel. I sat down at the small kitchen table across from her. "Lily, your father is an adult. His feelings are his own to manage," I said gently. "Sometimes, when people don't get what they expect, they get angry. It's not about betrayal. It's about me making a choice for myself." She nodded slowly, crumbling the edge of a warm cookie. "He said you're being selfish." "After 71 years," I said, looking out my window at the wide, open sky, "I think I've earned a little selfish." The sale of my house went through the following week. Margaret Davis handled everything. The new owners were a young family with 2 small children. I felt a pang of sadness, but it was a gentle one, like a memory of a song. The house needed the sound of children's laughter again. The money from the sale went directly into my investment account. It was a large sum. It guaranteed that my expenses here at the Willows were covered for the rest of my life, with plenty left over. It was the last string connecting me to Mark's expectations. Now it was cut. I celebrated by taking Judith and Arthur to dinner at a nice Italian restaurant downtown. I paid with my own credit card. The waiter brought us a bottle of sparkling wine, and the little bubbles tickled my nose. To new beginnings, Arthur said, raising his glass. He had a lovely smile. And to good choices, Judith added, clinking her glass against ours. The sound was clear and bright. A few days later, a large, frantic-looking floral arrangement was delivered to the front desk for me. It was mostly cheap carnations and ferns, the kind of thing you order in a panic. The card was tucked into a plastic fork. It read, "Mum, we need to talk. This has gone on long enough. I'm worried about you. Love, Mark." I took one look at the garish bouquet and handed it to Sarah at the front desk. "Sarah, would you please put these in the staff break room? Enjoy them." "Are you sure, Mrs. Henderson?" she asked. "Quite sure," I said. "Carnations give me a headache." I didn't need to talk to Mark. We had nothing left to say. His worry wasn't for me. It was for the life he had planned to live on my money. His love was conditional on my cooperation. I walked away from the desk, the scent of the cheap flowers fading behind me. That evening, I went to a classical music concert in the community auditorium with Arthur. He knew all about the composers. He would lean over and whisper little facts about the music before each piece began. His arm brushed against mine on the armrest. It was a small, simple thing. The music was beautiful. It filled the whole room. A soaring, complicated melody played on a grand piano. I closed my eyes and just listened. I wasn't thinking about houses or money or angry phone calls. I wasn't thinking about what was for the best, according to someone else. I was just a woman, in a comfortable chair, listening to music next to a kind man. The last note hung in the air, perfect and clear, before the applause started. I felt a sense of peace so deep. It was like the quiet at the bottom of a well. I was finally, completely, free. Thanksgiving was approaching. The air grew crisp, and the leaves in the gardens turned brilliant shades of red and gold. In my old life, I would have been planning for weeks, buying a 20-pound turkey, making lists for pies and side dishes. The smell of sage and roasting poultry would have filled my house for days. This year, the Willows was hosting a large Thanksgiving dinner in the main dining hall. The menu sounded wonderful. I wasn't cooking a thing. I felt a little thrill of freedom just thinking about it. Then, the invitation came. It was an email from Susan. "Family Thanksgiving at our house this year, 2 p.m. sharp. Let us know what side dish you're bringing." It wasn't a question. It was a summons. They expected me to show up with my famous sweet potato casserole, as if nothing had happened. I typed a simple reply. "Thank you for the invitation, but I have other plans. I hope you all have a lovely day." I pressed send. The email vanished into the internet. It felt like dropping a single pebble into a very large lake. The ripple effect was immediate. My phone rang an hour later. It was Mark. His voice was strained, trying for cheerful. "Hey, Mum, Susan said you got the invitation. What's this about other plans? It's Thanksgiving. It's for family." "Yes, it is," I said calmly, looking at the little clay bowl I'd made, which now held my paperclips. "I'm having dinner here with my friends." "Friends?" he scoffed. "Mum, we're your family. You've spent every Thanksgiving with us." "That's true," I said. "And they were lovely. This year, I'm starting a new tradition." There was a long, angry silence on his end. I could practically hear him grinding his teeth. "You're doing this to punish me, aren't you?" "No, Mark," I said, and my voice was gentle, without a trace of anger. "I'm doing this for me." I hung up before he could argue any more. A few days before the holiday, Susan showed up at the Willows unannounced. I was in the library with Arthur, working on a large jigsaw puzzle of a European castle. The pieces made a soft clicking sound as we sorted them. Sarah from the front desk came to find me. "Mrs. Henderson," she said, her voice low. "Your daughter-in-law is here. She says it's an emergency." I excused myself and went to the lobby. Susan was standing there, wringing her hands. She had dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing an expensive coat, but it looked rumpled. "Carol, thank goodness," she said, rushing toward me. "Mark is a mess. We got a letter from your lawyer about your will. You can't be serious." "I am perfectly serious, Susan," I said. I did not invite her to sit down. We just stood there, near a large pot of chrysanthemums. "You cut him out! Your own son! After everything we've done for you!" Her voice was rising, a sharp, whining sound. A few people in the lounge looked over. "And what is it you've done for me, Susan?" I asked, my voice quiet. "Tried to put me in a home and take my house?" Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. She had no answer. "It's not fair," she finally sputtered. "We were counting on that money. The house, the savings. It's our future. It's for Lily's college." "Lily's college is taken care of, in a trust that you and Mark can't touch," I told her. "As for your future, you and Mark are both healthy and employed. I'm sure you'll manage." I saw the fight go out of her. Her shoulders slumped. She looked smaller somehow, less polished. "What do you want from us, Carol?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I thought about that for a moment. What did I want? An apology? Regret? I realized with a sudden clarity that I didn't want anything from them at all. Their feelings were no longer my problem to solve. "I want you to respect my decisions," I said. "And I want you to leave. You're causing a scene." I turned and walked back toward the library without looking back. On Thanksgiving Day, the dining hall was beautiful. It was decorated with autumn flowers and glowing candles. The air smelled of turkey and spices and warm bread. I sat at a large round table with Judith, Arthur, and a few other friends I had made. We talked and laughed. Arthur told a funny story about a disastrous Thanksgiving he'd had in his 20s. Judith complained good-naturedly about the quality of the cranberry sauce. It was easy. It was comfortable. My phone buzzed in my purse. A text from Lily. It was a picture of a slightly burnt pumpkin pie. The caption read, "It's not as good as yours. We miss you. Happy Thanksgiving, Grandma." I smiled and texted back, "It looks beautiful, sweetheart. Happy Thanksgiving. I love you." I put my phone away. The waiters were bringing out slices of pie with dollops of whipped cream. I looked around the table at the friendly, smiling faces. This was my family now. This was my home. And for the first time, I understood that, for the best, was something you decided for yourself. Christmas decorations went up at the Willows right after Thanksgiving. The lobby had a huge tree that smelled wonderfully of fresh pine. White lights twinkled on all the bushes outside. There was a quiet, festive feeling in the air. It wasn't the frantic, exhausting rush I was used to. It was peaceful. I bought a small, artificial tree for my apartment. I decorated it with a few old ornaments from my box of keepsakes and some new ones I bought at the community craft fair. My crooked little clay bowl sat on the coffee table, filled with shiny red and green candies. Arthur and I had a standing date to do the daily crossword puzzle together in the library. We would sit in 2 comfortable armchairs by the fireplace. The only sounds were the rustle of the newspaper and the soft crackle of the fire. "What's a 7-letter word for a sudden realization?" he asked one afternoon, tapping his pen on the paper. "Freedom," I said, without looking up from my book. He chuckled. Doesn't fit, but it's a good word. Lily came for a visit 2 weeks before Christmas. She brought me a gift, wrapped in paper she had decorated herself. It was a framed photo of the two of us, taken on my balcony that first weekend she visited. We were both smiling, with ice cream on our faces. "For your new home, Grandma," she said. I gave her a big hug, my throat suddenly tight. It's the best gift I could have asked for. We spent the day in the community's woodshop. One of the residents, a retired carpenter, was teaching a class on how to make simple wooden toys. Lily and I worked together, sanding the pieces for a little rocking horse. The air smelled of sawdust and wood glue. Her brow was furrowed in concentration as she carefully painted on the horse's eyes. I watched her, my heart full. This was what mattered. These small, quiet moments. "Mum and Dad are selling their big car," she said casually, not looking up from her painting. "Mum says they need to be more fiscally responsible." I just nodded. That sounds like a sensible thing to do. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel anything at all about their finances. It was like hearing news about distant acquaintances. A week before Christmas, I received a card in the mail. The envelope was addressed in Mark's familiar, messy handwriting. I opened it with my silver letter opener, a gift from my late husband, Frank. The metal felt cool and solid in my hand. Inside was a generic Christmas card with a picture of a snowy village. Below the printed greeting, Mark had written a few lines. "Mum, I know things have been difficult. I've had a lot of time to think. I was wrong. I'm sorry." I read the words 3 times. I'm sorry. It was what I had once thought I needed to hear, but looking at it now, it felt thin. It felt like a tactic, not a true change of heart. It was the apology of a man who had tried everything else and failed. I put the card on my desk. I didn't throw it away, but I didn't answer it either. An apology is a key, but it only works if it's offered for the right door. He was apologizing for getting caught, not for what he had done. On Christmas Eve, the community held a concert. A string quartet played carols, and everyone sang along. The music was lovely. Arthur sat beside me, and his tenor voice was surprisingly strong and clear. I felt his hand find mine during Silent Night. His fingers were warm and dry. I held his hand. It felt natural. It felt right. After the concert, a few of us gathered in the lounge for hot chocolate. The big tree twinkled, and outside, a light snow had begun to fall, dusting the world in white. "It's a beautiful evening," Judith said, sighing happily into her mug. "It really is," I agreed. I thought of all the Christmases I had spent rushing, cooking, cleaning, trying to make everything perfect for everyone else. I had been the host, the organizer, the provider of magic. Tonight, I was just a guest. I was just Carol, and it was more than enough. On Christmas morning, my phone rang. It was Mark. I let the call go to voicemail. I didn't want his voice in my peaceful apartment. A few minutes later, a message popped up. "Mum, please call me. I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas." I looked at the message, then looked out my window at the fresh, untouched snow covering the gardens. I thought of the pale yellow room and the sound of the door clicking shut. I thought of Mark's voice saying, "It's for the best." I typed a short reply. "Merry Christmas to you and your family, Mark." Then I put my phone on the charger in the bedroom and closed the door. I went into my bright, sunny kitchen to make myself a pot of tea. The day was mine. The new year arrived quietly, without any drama. It came on a Tuesday, just like any other day. I went to my pottery class. My hands, now steady and familiar with the clay, formed a tall, elegant vase. It was still a little lopsided, but it had character. Judith and I started a book club, just four of us at first. We met on Thursday afternoons in the library, the air smelling of old paper and lemon tea. We argued about characters and plots. It was wonderful. Arthur and I took walks. Sometimes we didn't talk much at all, just enjoyed the feeling of the sun on our faces or the sound of the crunching gravel under our shoes. One afternoon, he pointed out a small, neglected patch of earth behind the tennis courts. "That would be a perfect spot for a vegetable garden," he said, his eyes thoughtful. "I haven't gardened in years," I said. "It's like riding a bicycle." He smiled. "You never really forget." One evening, my phone rang. It was Lily, and she was crying. My heart clenched. "What is it, sweetheart? Are you hurt?" "No, Grandma," she sniffled. "It's just, I won the regional science fair. I worked so hard on my project." "Oh, Lily, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you," I said, my voice full of warmth. "Mom and Dad were supposed to take me out for a celebration dinner," she said, her voice wobbling. "But they had another fight about the credit card bill and Dad left, and Mum is just locked in her room. They forgot." The carelessness of it stung me. For her, "They didn't forget, honey," I said gently. "They just got distracted. But your achievement is not forgotten. You deserve to be celebrated." I paused, an idea forming. "How would you like to have a very fancy party here this Saturday? Just for you?" On Saturday, I booked the small private dining room at the Willows. I ordered Lily's favourite meal: fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and a big chocolate cake with extra frosting. I invited Judith and Arthur. Lily arrived looking shy but excited. I had a little corsage of rosebuds for her to wear. Her eyes lit up when she saw it. Judith gave her a beautiful leather-bound journal. Arthur gave her a book about famous women scientists. They listened with genuine interest as she told them all about her project on hydroponics. Her voice grew confident and strong as she talked. When the cake came out, with a single candle glowing in the center, we all sang to her. She blew out the candle, her face glowing in the soft light. "Thank you, Grandma," she whispered to me later as I walked her to the lobby. "This was the best celebration ever." She gave me a fierce hug. "You always remember." The next afternoon, Mark was waiting for me in the lobby. He must have heard about the party from Lily. He looked thinner, and there were grey hairs at his temples I hadn't seen before. He stood up when he saw me. "Mum?" he said. His voice was quiet. "Can we talk?" "We are talking, Mark," I said, remaining standing. "That was a nice thing you did for Lily," he said, not meeting my eyes. He looked down at his shoes. Things have been hard." "I see," I said. It was not an apology. It was an excuse. "I miss how things were," he said finally, looking up at me. His eyes were pleading. "I miss my mum. I miss your Sunday dinners." I looked at my son. I saw the little boy who used to hold my hand, and the man who had walked me into a pale yellow room and left me there. The love was still there, a deep and stubborn root, but the trust was gone. The respect was gone. "I miss the good times too, Mark," I said, and my voice was not unkind. "But we can't go back. This is my life now. This is my home." The next morning, I was on my balcony before the sun came up. A soft blanket was wrapped around my shoulders. The air was cool and clean, and the sky was a pale, soft grey, waiting for the dawn. I heard the slide of the glass door behind me. It was Arthur, holding 2 steaming mugs. He handed one to me. The warmth seeped into my cold hands. The coffee smelled rich and dark. "I thought you might be out here," he said softly. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the edge of the sun begin to peek over the distant buildings. It painted the clouds in shades of pink and gold. Down below, in the little patch of earth behind the tennis courts, I could see the neat rows where Arthur and I had planted tomato seedlings last week. A new beginning. I took a sip of my coffee. It was hot and strong. I felt the warmth spread through me. I wasn't waiting for a phone call. I wasn't bracing for a disappointment. I was just watching the sunrise. And I felt calm. I felt respected. I felt free.